Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So today is going to be kind of a late video because I planned on making this video last week, but I got caught up with finals and all that, so it's coming out this week and it's a little late, but it's okay. So I just got some magnetic lashes and I'm trying them out right now. We'll see how it goes, but I don't think I did a very good job on the eyeliner, so please be nice to me. Also, it's been a while since I filmed a video, so bear with me if I'm a little bit scatterbrained throughout this video or if it's a little bit too chaotic. But real quick, I just wanted to say that if you're new to my channel, thank you so much for checking out my video. I'm really happy that you're here, and definitely subscribe because I'm posting new videos every week. I'm starting this new thing where I post a video twice a week, so the next video should come out this Wednesday, and this will be happening until I start school again because I have the time to do that right now. And I have a lot of fun making these videos. So if you haven't heard from the title, it is a May wrap up. Let me just say that May has been the best reading month that I've had this year so far, and honestly the best reading month that I've had in my entire life. I cannot believe that I've gotten through that many books, and some of these books were really chunky books, like some big ones. Right off the bat, I've read 9 books this month, which is so crazy. Ever since I started reading and listening to the audiobook at the same time, I've been getting through books a lot quicker. So I'm not going to keep you up any longer. Let's get into all of the books that I've read. So the first book that I read in May was New Moon, and this was for a 2-part reading vlog that I did earlier in the month. And if you want to check that out, I'll leave a link in the description, and I'll also leave a card up here. I read New Moon, and then obviously I read Eclipse. And then after I read Eclipse, I read Breaking Dawn. So my full thoughts will be in those reading vlogs. Although I will say that I think my ratings have changed ever since I read them, because I'm starting like a whole new rating system, which I'll probably come out with another video about because a lot of my ratings will probably change. So New Moon, I gave it a 3 stars. Eclipse, I gave it a 3 stars as well. And then Breaking Dawn, I gave it a 5 stars. First of all, I've never read the entire series all the way through, so I was really happy to be going through this. As you'll see in the vlog, I was going through kind of a tough time because school has been not so great lately, especially being online. When I was reading these books, I found that they were very comforting to read. I think part of it was the nostalgia. It took me back to a time when I was in high school when I was reading these books. So part of that was why I gave it a higher rating at first, but now looking at it a little bit more objectively, I think New Moon and Eclipse deserve a 3 star, and then Breaking Dawn, I feel like it ended really well, so I gave it a 5 star. Also, I'm trying this new thing where I'm going to be saying a quote that really impacted me from some of these books. There's going to be some books that didn't really impact me, and for those books obviously I'm not going to have a quote for them, but for the books that really stood out to me and for quotes that really stood out to me, I'm going to start talking a little bit about why they impacted me personally. So I think that's going to be like a new thing that I'm going to be doing for these wrap-up videos, just to make them a little bit more interesting and also for you to learn a little bit more about me. So for these 3 Twilight books, I'm just going to combine them all because there's actually not many quotes that I actually really like. So for all the Twilight books, I'll say, "Life sucks and then you die," from Breaking Dawn. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I don't need to get into that quote, but I just thought that quote was pretty hilarious. The next book that I read in May was for an AAPI readathon that I did with my friend Autumn, and I had a lot of fun during that readathon. So if you want to check out the readathon, I'll also leave that in a card up above, and I'll also leave a link in the description. But I read 3 books during that readathon, and the first book that I read was On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong, and this book is a letter from a son that he wrote to his mother. It talks a lot about their culture because they come from Vietnam and a lot of the trauma that they experienced, and it's just a really emotional book. This book is really poetic. It's hard to really explain how this book really made me feel because there was a lot of things in it that I related to, but also there's a lot of very traumatic and interesting things that happen in this book. I think this book deserves a 5 star because it really impacted me on a personal level, and I think that a lot of people should read this book. So the quote from this book that really stuck out to me was, It must suck to be the sun, because you never see yourself if you're the sun. You don't even know where you are in the sky. A reason why I picked this quote was because Andrew and I were talking about the first time that we realized that we were beautiful. I think this is a really interesting question because sometimes you don't really see yourself. I mean, you can see yourself in the mirror, but you don't truly see yourself. I think the idea of beauty and our perception of ourselves is a really interesting thing to think about. When you're in your own body, you can't really see how beautiful you are. Maybe you can objectively see that, oh, like, I'm pretty or something like that. But a lot of the times, people do not realize how beautiful they are. I think this quote applies to everyone because everyone is a sun in their own way. You don't see yourself and you don't notice some of the things that appeal to other people, I guess. And if you really don't think that you're beautiful, I assure you that there is at least one person that finds you beautiful. So I rated this one a 5 out of 5 stars. I think that's a given. And if you want to see more of my thoughts on it, please go check out my readathon vlog. The next book that I read in that readathon was The Farm by Joanne Ramos. This book is about a place in New York where they host surrogate mothers. So they take care of surrogate mothers, and these surrogate mothers are carrying the children of very, very rich people. So it follows a couple of these surrogate mothers, and one of them is trying to get out of the place to go see her own daughter, her actual daughter, but they won't let any of the mothers have any outside contact. So they're all taken care of in this, you know, retreat, I guess. But if you want to have any outside contact, they really limit that. This is the very first book that I've read by a Filipino author, and I really just wanted to read something by a Filipino author since I am Filipino. This book was okay. To me, it was okay because personally I'm not a mother, so I'm not exactly sure how a mother would react in certain situations. So I felt like I couldn't really relate to this book. Also, the book was about surveillance, which kind of stressed me out. For the first book that I read by a Filipino author, it was okay. It wasn't too impactful. It didn't have like any big ideas that I personally related to. I was really back and forth about what rating I would give this book because I wanted to give it a good rating since it is, you know, like I want to give more Filipinos a platform, but I personally didn't find anything amazing about this book, you know? So I think I'm gonna rate it a 3.5 out of 5 stars because it's not amazing and there's nothing really wrong that I find with this book. The third book that I read during that readathon was The Kiss Quotient by Helen Wong. I don't read romances too often, but I think this was a pretty good one. This one's about an autistic woman who struggles with intimacy, so she hires an escort to help her learn how to be a little bit more intimate with people. I thought that the characters in this book were really cute and the plot was so interesting. I just kind of wish that I didn't read this during a readathon because I think if I took my time to read this book, I would enjoy it a little bit more. But for what it is, I think it was a really good book, and so I rated a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. So this book is about two sisters. They come from a city full of colored people who are very light-skinned, and these two sisters run away from home. One of them marries the blackest man ever and has a child with him and has a very, very dark child. And then the other one tries to pass as a white person and she ends up having a white child. So I took my time to read this book. Personally, I really enjoyed reading this book. I'm always into those kinds of books that are about like duality or like, you know, this or that, black and white, you know, that sort of thing. I thought it was really interesting how the way that these two sisters grew up in such different settings really impacted the lives of their children. So I'm really happy that I read this book, and I think it's gonna be one of those things that is gonna be like a classic, you know? I feel like this book could end up being like a classic book. One of the sisters, the one that passes as a white person, she ends up getting a black neighbor. She's kind of racist towards her neighbor even though she's black herself, but I think she just like tries to avoid being with other black people because she's afraid of being found out and stuff, but she secretly befriends her, secret to the rest of her neighborhood. One of the things that they talk about amongst each other is that her neighbor asks her why she moved there, And when she says, like, you know, it's the schools, it's a nice neighborhood, it's clean and safe, her neighbor says, then don't you think I'd want those same things too? Out of all the quotes in this book, I feel like this one is the most impactful to me. You know, it's obvious, but when it's said outright like that, I just think it just brings it to the forefront of your mind, you know? So I rated this one a 5 out of 5 stars. I feel like this book is gonna be like a classic book. Then after I read The Vanishing Half, I wanted to read something a lot more lighter because I've been reading so many like heavy books. Not only on the content, but like just like I've just been reading so much this month. So I decided to read The Phantom Toll Booth by Norton Juster. This book is about a kid who goes through a toll booth and it takes him to another place. It's kind of like Alice in Wonderland, where she goes to Wonderland, you know? And basically he goes on an adventure to save this world that he's in. I read this book when I was a kid and I remember really loving this book. So when I saw this book in a tiny library, I decided to get it. And I'm really glad that I did because it was just like, you know, just a comforting read, and there's pictures in it too. I really enjoyed reading this book. A lot of this book has a lot of plays on words, so it kind of like forces you to think about the things that we say sometimes and like, you know, manners of speaking. I think this is a really good children's book. I honestly might keep this for myself, or maybe I'll buy a new one because this one's like kind of old. Whoever Ryan is, Ryan has written all over this book. So this book is a 5 out of 5 stars. Just an overall good book. Oh, and the quote that I really liked from this book: so many things are possible just as long as you don't know they're impossible. And I really like that quote because sometimes when you think about how impossible things seem, it starts to become impossible. But when you think that things are impossible, you're gonna end up doing it, right? Whereas if you think that things are impossible, you tend to avoid doing that thing. So I think that's a really good quote for kids to think about. Last but not least, I read Educated by Tara Westover, and oh my gosh, this book, I think this is probably one of the most personal books that I've ever read. Like personally impacted me. What am I trying to say? One of the most personally impacting books that I've ever read. Is there another word for impactful? Because I keep saying the word impactful and I feel like I'm just overusing this book. I related to this book on a very personal level, and I'm really glad that my friend Teresa lent me this book because I probably would have never gotten this book for myself. Because I've been seeing this book on shelves and it just didn't appeal to me. But after I read this book, I'm like, oh, I get why it's the bestseller. So this book is a memoir about the author. The author grew up in a survivalist family. So all of their lives they've been they're like preppers. They prepare for the end of days and stuff. So her father was very paranoid of the government, which included the education system, hospitals, all of that stuff. When she was born, she was never given a birth certificate. So according to the government, she never existed. So she never attended school, and none of her siblings or anyone in her family went to the hospital for anything. There were a lot of injuries in this book. So if you're a little queasy when it comes to that sort of thing, I think you should avoid reading this book because there's a lot of injuries in this book. It goes to show how far the father was willing to go to avoid anything to do with the government. But eventually one of her brothers goes off to college, and it kind of puts that idea in her head to go to school, and she does end up going to college, ends up getting a really good education. But a lot of the things that her family believed and the things that she thought herself were very harmful, and just I think it was just like a battle between what normal people do and what her family does. So this book was a lot about the family and how your family could perpetuate some of the things that are not good for you. A lot of the themes in this book I really related to. One quote that sums up the whole theme about like the family and stuff like that is, "What is a person to do," I asked, "when their obligations to their family conflict with other obligations, to friends, to society, to themselves?" And I think that's a really important question to ask, because sometimes when things that have to do with your family are really conflicting with you, it's hard to stay away from your own family because it's all you've ever known and you're taught that family is everything. Part of what this book is about being able to leave the things that you love and still being able to love them, you know? And she talks about that in a lot of her interviews, which I've watched a lot of them. So yeah, I think that this book will be good for anyone who reads it, besides anyone who's queasy, of course. Obviously, this gets a 5 out of 5 stars. I feel like this is one of those books that I'm probably gonna be reading every so often because I don't know, I just really love this book. I'm definitely gonna get this for myself. So that is it for all of the books that I've read in May. I read 9 books once again. I don't expect June to be that much more productive, but honestly I have the whole month off, so maybe I will get through a lot of books. But I'm not promising anything. Reading should be fun and I should read at my own pace. Really good reading month, some really great books this month. I'm really happy with all the books that I've read. I'm excited for what June can bring. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up because that helps me out so much. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe because I post new videos every week, and now I'm going to be posting twice a week, so you'll get a video on Wednesday and one on Sunday. Follow my Instagram because sometimes I post updates on my Instagram there too. Also leave a comment if you have any book recommendations or if you have any more ideas for videos that you want to see. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!